Adventures of Ideas by Alfred North Whitehead. Quotes. In Adventures of Ideas, Alfred North Whitehead embarks on an exploration of the profound impact of ideas on human civilization. The book weaves together the history of philosophical, scientific, and cultural thoughts that have shaped the evolution of humanity. Whitehead's perspective highlights the importance of ideas as drivers of civilization, emphasizing their role in fostering both progress and conflict. His discussion spans the development of freedom, the human soul, and the interplay between individualism and social organization, urging readers to understand the profound influence of ideas in guiding societies toward greater possibilities. Quote 1. Theories are built upon facts, and, conversely, the reports upon facts are shot through and through with theoretical interpretation. The quote suggests that while theories are constructed based on facts, the interpretation of these facts is never purely objective, but is influenced by pre-existing theories. This interplay between fact and theory implies that our understanding of history and reality is always subject to the biases and perspectives of the observer. Observations are not merely the recounting of events as they happened, but are deeply embedded with subjective judgments and theoretical biases, making pure objectivity unattainable. Quote 2. The historian in his description of the past depends on his own judgment as to what constitutes the importance of human life. This means that the historian's interpretation of history is guided by their subjective decisions regarding what aspects of human experience matter most. Every historian brings their values and worldview to the interpretation of historical events, deciding what elements deserve focus and what can be marginalized. This selection process underscores the inherent biases in historical narratives, which reflect not just the past itself, but also the priorities and cultural context of the historian. Quote 3. In considering the history of ideas, I maintain that the notion of mere knowledge is a high abstraction which we should dismiss from our minds. The author argues that knowledge is never neutral or devoid of context. It is always accompanied by emotions and intentions. The notion of mere knowledge as a detached collection of facts is an illusion, as all knowledge involves an emotional response and a purposeful application. This perspective emphasizes that human understanding is always intertwined with subjective factors that shape how knowledge is formed and used. Quote 4. Steam and barbarians, each in their own age, were the senseless agencies driving their respective civilizations away from inherited modes of order. Here, the author compares the disruptive forces of industrialization, steam, with historical barbarian invasions, suggesting that both represent irrational powers that destabilize existing structures. These forces push societies away from traditional norms, regardless of whether their impact is seen as progress or destruction. The emphasis is on how civilizations are often moved by seemingly uncontrollable forces that alter the course of history without a clear, rational intention. Quote 5. The fall of the Roman Empire occurred in a prolonged age of despair. Steam and democracy belong to an age of hope. This contrasts two distinct periods of transformation, highlighting the emotional tenor of each. The fall of the Roman Empire was marked by a sense of hopelessness and decline, whereas the advent of steam and democracy was accompanied by optimism and aspirations for a better future. This comparison illustrates how the context in which historical changes occur can profoundly affect the collective emotions and outlook of the people living through those times. Quote 6. In our estimate of these agencies, everything depends upon our standpoint of criticism. The quote means that how we judge the forces driving historical change largely depends on our own perspective and values. Our evaluations of past events, whether as progress or decay, are shaped by our intellectual and cultural context. This subjectivity in historical judgment underscores that there is no universal or objective measure for determining the significance of historical transitions. Each assessment is deeply personal and contingent on the observer's viewpoint. Quote 7. Yet, even the senseless side of history refuses to accept its own proper category of sheer senselessness. The author suggests that even events or forces that seem irrational and devoid of purpose ultimately exhibit some underlying order or intent when viewed from a broader perspective. Despite appearing chaotic, elements like natural forces or seemingly aimless invasions are part of a larger, interconnected historical process. This view challenges the idea that any aspect of history can be dismissed as meaningless, emphasizing that even the most senseless-seeming events have an integral role in shaping the human story. Quote 8. In any human society, one fundamental idea tinging every detail of activity is the general conception of the status of the individual members of that group, considered apart from any special preeminence. This quote emphasizes the idea that within any society, there is an underlying concept of how individuals are valued, regardless of their specific achievements or status. It suggests that the recognition of each person as an independent being with emotions, perceptions, and purposes is a foundational aspect of civilized society. This recognition is crucial in understanding the basis of social interactions and moral duties that evolve over time. The emergence of concepts such as duty and psyche marked significant progress in human civilization, enabling individuals to reflect on their actions and their roles within the larger community, ultimately shaping the development of moral and intellectual culture. Quote 9. The progress of religion is defined by the denunciation of gods. This quote points out that religious progress is often characterized by the rejection of older, less morally refined deities. As societies evolve, their conception of divinity also changes, moving away from gods that embody primitive tribal brutalities towards more sophisticated ideals. This process of rejecting old gods reflects humanity's growing capacity for moral and intellectual criticism, and it is an essential part of the evolution of religious thought. The idea of noble discontent plays a key role in this progress, driving humanity to critique and improve upon its existing beliefs, and thus fostering a higher standard of morality and spirituality. Quote 10. There can be no mere morality in a vacuum. This quote asserts that morality cannot exist in isolation. It must have a context or content upon which it operates. Moral values are derived from a combination of human experiences, such as emotions, beauty, and intellectual fineness, rather than existing independently. This implies that morality is not just an abstract set of principles, but something that evolves through and is shaped by the complexities of human life. Morality gains its meaning from its application to real-life situations, where emotions, duties, and intellectual pursuits intersect to guide human behavior towards what is considered good or noble. Quote 11. Freedom and equality constitute an inevitable presupposition for modern political thought, with an admixture of subsequent lame qualification. The quote highlights that, in contrast to the ancient presupposition of slavery, modern political thought is fundamentally based on the ideals of freedom and equality, though often these ideals come with limitations and contradictions. While these principles are at the core of contemporary political ideology, the practical implementation of freedom and equality remains fraught with challenges and inconsistencies. This shift from slavery to freedom as a basic political assumption marks a significant evolution in how societies view the dignity and rights of individuals, even though the struggle to fully realize these ideals continues. Quote 12. Christianity rapidly assimilated the Platonic doctrine of the human soul. This quote explains how early Christianity adopted and adapted Plato's philosophical ideas, particularly those concerning the nature of the human soul. The fusion of Platonic philosophy and Christian thought enriched the religious doctrines by introducing a sophisticated understanding of the human soul's worth and potential. This combination of philosophy and religion helped shape the ideals of Western civilization, creating a powerful intellectual and moral framework that continues to influence the way human dignity and ethical behavior are perceived today. The integration of these concepts provided a compelling vision of human life, emphasizing both spiritual and intellectual fulfillment as essential to human existence. Quote 13. The great transitions are due to a coincidence of forces derived from both sides of the world, its physical and its spiritual natures. This quote highlights that significant transformations in human history are the result of an interplay between physical forces, like natural disasters or technological advancements, and spiritual forces, like ideologies and beliefs. These transitions require not just physical events, but also intellectual agency to shape and direct change. For instance, natural occurrences may lead to crises, but it takes human intelligence and creativity to turn such challenges into opportunities for progress, such as converting a flood into a well-designed irrigation system. It underscores that both the material and spiritual realms are necessary for driving the major shifts that characterize human progress. Quote 14. Great ideas enter into reality with evil associates and with disgusting alliances. This means that even the most profound and noble ideas, when they manifest in the real world, often get entangled with undesirable or corrupt elements. As these ideas become part of society, they are accompanied by compromises and associations that may taint their original purity. Despite this, the essence of the great idea persists, motivating humanity to strive towards higher ideals. This dynamic process highlights the imperfect nature of human progress, where ideals are often diluted or distorted, but their underlying greatness remains a guiding force that inspires further evolution and improvement in human societies. Quote 15. The ultimate ideals, of which they profess themselves the guardians, are a standing criticism of current practices. This statement emphasizes that the highest ideals, often claimed to be upheld by religious or cultural institutions, inherently critique the existing societal practices. Although religious institutions may become conservative over time, adapting to protect the status quo, the ideals they profess serve as a constant reminder of the gap between what society currently is and what it could become. This inherent criticism keeps pushing humanity towards moral progress, challenging people to strive for a closer alignment between their practices and their professed beliefs, thus encouraging reform and the pursuit of greater justice. Quote 16. A whole succession of such waves are as dreams slowly doing their work of sapping the base of some cliff of habit. But the seventh wave is a revolution. The quote illustrates that societal change often begins gradually, with successive ideas eroding established norms and habits over time, like waves against a cliff. Each wave represents an incremental influence that gradually weakens the old structure, until finally a powerful surge, a seventh wave, arrives that brings about revolutionary change. This metaphor underlines the cumulative nature of progress, where seemingly small and disconnected efforts eventually culminate in a significant shift that transforms society, marking a point of no return from previous conventions or injustices. Quote 17. The importance of man as the supreme example of a living organism is beyond question. This statement asserts the unique significance of human beings as the most advanced form of life, especially in the context of intellect, moral capacity, and social organization. The discussion highlights the complexity of human life, with its aspirations, ethical considerations, and intellectual pursuits. However, expressing these general concepts about humanity and their implications for behavior is challenging, often leading to debate and differing interpretations. This underscores the ongoing struggle to articulate the value of human life in philosophical and practical terms, while also advancing the understanding of human potential and the broader meaning of existence. Quote 18. The modern evolution of big business involves a closer analogy to feudalism than does feudalism to slavery. The quote suggests that the structure of modern big businesses, with their complex hierarchies and interdependencies, resembles the organizational structure of feudalism more closely than it does slavery. Feudalism was characterized by a system of interlocked relationships where each level had its duties and rights, creating a form of order. Similarly, modern industries require such coordination among different levels to function. The comparison implies that, just like feudalism, the current corporate system depends on clearly defined roles and relationships rather than the forced labor characteristic of slavery. This highlights that despite the evolving nature of economic structures, there is a consistent need for systems that manage interdependencies among people to achieve stability. Quote 19. The sense of the unity of civilization fostered by the Catholic Church, the general similarities of mankind throughout Europe, and the simplicities of life in the Middle Ages are probably the main reasons why medieval wars were dissociated from slave-raiding expeditions. This means that during the Middle Ages, the shared cultural and religious beliefs fostered by the Catholic Church, combined with the relative simplicity of medieval life, helped prevent European wars from turning into campaigns of enslavement. Unlike earlier or non-European conflicts, which often involved capturing and enslaving defeated populations, the unity brought by the Church encouraged a sense of broader community, reducing the likelihood of enslaving fellow Christians. This cultural cohesion, alongside the more basic lifestyles of the time, allowed for wars that were not primarily aimed at acquiring slaves, which represents a significant departure from the practices of ancient empires or later colonial endeavors. Quote 20. Private life now dominated the social life of Europe in all its special forms: the right of private judgment, private property, the competition of private traders, private amusement. This quote captures the shift from a coordinated, communal-oriented society of the Middle Ages to one that prioritized individual rights and private interests. This transition led to the rise of personal freedom and autonomy in various aspects of life, including the right to form one's own opinions, the ownership of private property, and engagement in free market competition. The emphasis on private life replaced the old system of communal coordination, giving rise to a more individualistic society where each person's pursuit of their own goals often took precedence over collective harmony. This transformation reflects the growing influence of personal liberty as a defining principle of modern Western societies. Quote 21. The pure doctrine of 19th-century liberalism failed. This quote indicates that the idealized version of liberalism, which emphasized complete freedom, individualism, and competition without intervention, ultimately did not succeed in addressing the challenges of the industrial age. The unchecked application of these principles led to severe social inequalities and widespread misery, particularly for the working class in the factories, mines, and slums. The laissez-faire approach allowed for industrial conditions that were often exploitative, resembling forms of modern slavery, which necessitated state intervention and social reform. Thus, the failure of pure liberalism was seen in its inability to balance individual freedom with the welfare of society as a whole, forcing governments to adopt remedial measures to protect vulnerable populations and ensure social stability. Quote 22. Karl Marx proclaimed the doctrine of the class war. This quote refers to Karl Marx's theory that society's development is driven by the conflict between different social classes, primarily between the ruling class, bourgeoisie, and the working class, proletariat. This doctrine emerged as a response to the failures and inequalities caused by the first phase of the Industrial Revolution, which had generated significant social and economic injustices. Marx's proclamation of the class struggle resonated with the masses who suffered under exploitative conditions, as it highlighted the deep-seated tensions that arose from the disparities between the owning class and the labor force. Despite criticisms regarding its scientific accuracy, Marx's theory gained popularity because it addressed the real grievances experienced by many during the rapid industrial changes of the 19th century. Quote 23. Instead of dwelling on the brotherhood of man, we are now directed to procure the extermination of the unfit. This quote illustrates the shift in societal thinking from emphasizing universal human brotherhood to embracing a harsher worldview influenced by the concept of natural selection. With Darwin's theory of evolution and the principle of survival of the fittest gaining prominence, the idea of compassion and care for all individuals weakened, giving way to a more ruthless view of progress. The emphasis moved from supporting the weak and fostering collective growth to justifying the elimination of those deemed less capable in order to ensure the advancement of the species. This change marked a significant departure from humanitarian ideals, challenging the notion of inherent human dignity and the responsibility to uplift all members of society. Quote 24. The early liberal faith that, by the decree of benevolent providence, individualistic competition and industrial activity would necessarily work together for human happiness had broken down as soon as it was tried. This quote refers to the initial optimism of early liberalism, which believed that if individuals were left free to compete in the marketplace, their actions would automatically result in the greatest possible happiness for society as a whole. This belief was grounded in the idea that a benevolent divine order underpinned the world and would ensure that self-interested pursuits contributed to the common good. However, the reality of the early industrial era, with its widespread poverty, exploitation, and inequality, quickly disproved this assumption. The suffering of the working class and the failure to create a just society through unchecked competition demonstrated the flaws in this idealistic view, necessitating new approaches to social and economic coordination. Quote 25. The force is the sheer fact of what the antecedent volume of the world in fact contains. This statement suggests that the power of force lies in its grounding in the existing conditions and realities of the world. Force represents the unchanging, factual aspects of the material world, what is already present and established. In contrast, ideals, such as those conceived by Plato, act as a prophecy that can shape the future by inspiring changes to these existing conditions. The interplay between the fixed reality of the past and the creative power of ideals allows for the possibility of progress. This balance between what is and what could be drives the ongoing evolution of society, illustrating that while force defines the limitations of the present, ideals have the potential to transcend these boundaries and bring about transformation. Quote 26. No period is wholly controlled by either one of these extremes, reigning through its whole range of activities. This quote indicates that historical periods are never dominated entirely by either the notion of individual freedom or by complete social control. There is always a mix of both, with different areas of society emphasizing one over the other to varying extents. For instance, while military discipline may require strict obedience and suppression of individual desires, other aspects of society, like intellectual or academic pursuits, may afford more freedom. The balance between these extremes is shaped by historical circumstances, power shifts, and societal needs. This dynamic interplay between individual liberty and social cohesion ultimately defines the character of each era and how its people navigate their collective and personal lives. Quote 27. Our consciousness does not initiate our modes of functioning. We awake to find ourselves engaged in process, immersed in satisfactions and dissatisfactions, and actively modifying, either by intensification or by attenuation or by the introduction of novel purposes. This quote suggests that human consciousness does not create or directly start our behaviors and actions. Rather, we find ourselves already participating in processes shaped by instincts and habits. We become conscious of these processes and then decide whether to amplify, minimize, or alter them by introducing new goals. The quote emphasizes the complex relationship between instinct, thought, and purposeful action, where instinct drives behavior, and thought or wisdom then modulates or guides it. This interplay between subconscious impulses and conscious intentions illustrates the layered nature of human decision-making, with consciousness not as the origin but as a modifier of ongoing actions. Quote 28. The folly of intelligent people, clear-headed and narrow-visioned, has precipitated many catastrophes. This quote conveys that even highly intelligent individuals can cause significant problems when they lack broader insight. Having a clear and logical mind is not sufficient if the perspective is too narrow or ignores important aspects of the situation. This limited vision can lead to misjudgments and decisions that ultimately bring about disastrous consequences. The remark highlights the importance of integrating wisdom and a wide-ranging understanding with intelligence, especially in the realms of leadership and social organization. A lack of holistic thinking can result in misguided actions, despite the intelligence of the decision-makers, underscoring the need for well-rounded wisdom in preventing societal failures. Quote 29. The Athenians have given us the first surviving instance of the explicit recognition of the importance of tolerance in respect to varieties of social behavior. This quote refers to the Athenian civilization as the earliest known society to explicitly acknowledge and defend the importance of allowing diverse forms of social behavior. In Athens, individuals were given more freedom to pursue their own ways of life without being subject to the rigid control typical of earlier societies. This explicit defense of tolerance was articulated by Pericles, whose speeches, as recorded by Thucydides, emphasized the significance of preserving individual freedom as a means of achieving a richer and more harmonious society. The Athenian example underscores how tolerance and the acceptance of diversity are essential elements of a thriving civilization, fostering creativity, personal growth, and societal development. Quote 30. The thought of the 17th and 18th centuries rationalized its political philosophy under the fiction of the original contract. This quote refers to the idea of the original contract, which was used in political philosophy during the 17th and 18th centuries as a rational basis for explaining the legitimacy of government. The notion helped to support revolutions like the American and French, by framing authority as an agreement between the people and their rulers. However, its weakness lies in its assumption that rational consideration played a greater role in political decisions than it actually did historically. This concept of a foundational social agreement was significant in challenging monarchic claims, such as the divine right of kings, and in promoting the idea that governmental power should be derived from the consent of the governed, even if the historical reality was more complex. Quote 31. Unrestricted liberty means complete absence of any compulsory coordination. This quote suggests that absolute freedom, without any form of regulation or control, would lead to a lack of coordinated action among individuals within a society. For civilization to exist, there must be some level of organization and mutual adaptation among people, which requires imposing limits on individual behavior for the common good. The challenge lies in finding a balance between liberty and necessary control, as neither unrestricted freedom nor complete conformity is conducive to a stable society. The quote highlights the importance of establishing a nuanced approach to managing freedom, where some restrictions are necessary to ensure that society functions effectively, while preserving individual liberties to a reasonable extent. Quote 32. The antithesis to a profession is an avocation based upon customary activities and modified by the trial and error of individual practice. This quote contrasts professions with crafts or informal occupations, suggesting that professions are characterized by a systematic understanding and theoretical analysis of their activities, while crafts are more dependent on inherited skills and individual experimentation. In professions, there is an ongoing refinement of methods based on theoretical insights, which guides practice towards specific purposeful goals. In contrast, crafts rely heavily on traditions and personal adaptation, with improvement coming more through experience than formal knowledge. This distinction is important in understanding the evolution of modern societies, where professions with rigorous theoretical foundations increasingly play a central role, offering greater precision and reliability compared to crafts, which were more dominant in ancient civilizations. Quote 33. This new form of liberty, which is the autonomous institution limited to special purposes, was especially exemplified in the guilds of the Middle Ages. This quote points to the concept of liberty as represented by self-governing institutions that are autonomous but focused on specific areas of action, like the guilds of the Middle Ages. These guilds were organizations that had the freedom to regulate their own affairs without direct state intervention, illustrating a form of liberty distinct from that of individuals. Such institutions were empowered to operate within their specialized domains, providing both structure and independence. This form of liberty was essential in creating a more complex social order, where different groups had the freedom to pursue their purposes while being distinct from state control, thus contributing to a diversified and resilient societal structure. Quote 34. The gradual development of persuasive agencies in the communal life of mankind was not wholly due to the energizing of ideas. This quote suggests that the evolution of methods based on persuasion within human societies was not solely driven by intellectual progress or ideas. Instead, persuasion naturally developed as a part of social interactions, such as those within families or between different communities. This type of interaction includes elements like love, sympathy, and mutual support, alongside compulsion. It implies that even in early human societies, softer, more cooperative modes of interaction coexisted with more aggressive ones. The process of relying more on persuasion fostered an environment conducive to intellectual and cultural growth, leading to a positive evolutionary trend. Therefore, the expansion of persuasive modes was instrumental in the gradual upliftment of civilization, enabling higher forms of intellectual and emotional engagement. Quote 35. The commerce of mankind involves every species of interchange, which proceeds by way of mutual persuasion. This quote broadens the concept of commerce beyond the exchange of material goods to encompass all forms of interaction driven by persuasion, including cultural and intellectual exchanges. Commerce, in this sense, is not limited to the trade of commodities or currency, but extends to any situation where human beings engage in reciprocal actions that influence each other. Such interactions are based on shared desires, needs, and conventions, which can be physical, psychological, or even entirely social. The emphasis here is on the importance of persuasion in driving these exchanges, suggesting that human society advances not merely through force or compulsion, but through cooperative, persuasive interactions that lead to mutually beneficial outcomes. Quote 36. The dream of luxury is the first, and more dangerous, phase of the Malthusian pressure on a population. This quote describes the initial response of a population that begins to feel economic pressure. Before the full onset of poverty and destitution, people may start desiring luxury and a higher quality of life as their resources begin to feel insufficient. This desire for luxury, rather than absolute need, can drive expansion, conflict, and conquest. It reflects the emotional restlessness that precedes a Malthusian crisis, where a growing population starts to feel constrained by its resources, leading to tensions and sometimes to catastrophic outcomes like wars or migrations. The danger lies in how these desires fuel social and political movements, which can destabilize entire regions, highlighting the complex relationship between economic needs, human emotions, and social upheaval. Quote 37. The central factor is commerce, and more than that, it is commerce developed adventurously. This quote emphasizes that commerce plays a vital role in sustaining a prosperous civilization, but it is not just any commerce. It must be dynamic, innovative, and expanding. The development of adventurous commerce allows societies to grow, adapt, and overcome limitations such as resource scarcity or population pressure. Historical examples include periods when expanding trade routes, discovering new lands, or introducing new technologies allowed societies to flourish rather than stagnate or collapse under the weight of their growing needs. The adventurous spirit in commerce is crucial, as it drives the exploration of new opportunities and solutions, ensuring that the population's needs are met and that the civilization continues to progress. Quote 38. The essence of technology is to enable mankind to transcend such limitations of unguided nature. This quote emphasizes that the core purpose of technology is to overcome the inherent constraints set by nature without human intervention. In early times, the limits of agricultural production imposed severe restrictions on human life, with population growth being held back by the natural availability of food and other resources. Technological innovations, like crop rotation, the scientific understanding of fertilizers, and genetic improvements, have significantly extended these natural limits, allowing humanity to grow beyond what nature alone would permit. The evolution of technology is thus presented as a fundamental means of enhancing human life by expanding the boundaries of what is possible in terms of production and survival. Quote 39. Modern history begins when Europeans passed into a new phase of understanding which enabled them to introduce new selective agencies, unguessed by the older civilizations. This quote suggests that the turning point in modern history occurred when European societies developed a new mindset that allowed them to adopt novel methods of progress, surpassing the constraints faced by earlier civilizations like China, India, and the Near East. These older societies had reached a state of arrested development due to their inability to introduce new ways of advancing their societies. In contrast, Europeans introduced innovative approaches in commerce, technology, and social organization that helped them break free from the stagnation that had limited previous civilizations. This transformation highlights the importance of intellectual flexibility and the willingness to embrace new possibilities in driving societal progress. Quote 40. The real failure consists in the fact that in the year 600 AD, Western Europe was less civilized than in the year 100 AD. This quote points out that the true measure of failure for the Western Roman Empire was not merely the collapse of its political institutions, but the regression of civilization itself. By the year 600 AD, Western Europe had fallen into a state of cultural decline compared to the relative sophistication it had achieved in the first century. This decline was marked by a loss of intellectual, artistic, and social advancements that had previously flourished under Roman rule. The quote underscores the vulnerability of civilization to regress if it lacks expansion, adventure, and the continual pursuit of cultural and intellectual growth, emphasizing that progress is never guaranteed and must be actively maintained. Quote 41. Commerce is the great example of intercourse in the way of persuasion. This quote highlights commerce as the quintessential form of interaction based on persuasion rather than force. Unlike war, slavery, or governmental compulsion, which rely on coercion, commerce thrives on voluntary exchanges, mutual benefit, and the persuasive power of negotiation. It brings people together across different regions and cultures, fostering peaceful interactions that depend on agreement rather than dominance. The ability of commerce to facilitate understanding, cooperation, and cultural exchange is contrasted with the coercive methods that characterize the decline of Near Eastern civilizations. This distinction emphasizes the role of commerce in promoting a more humane and progressive form of social organization. Quote 42. Our ignorance is suffused with foresight. This quote emphasizes that, despite the vast extent of what we do not know, our understanding is not entirely empty. It is enriched with elements of foresight. Although we lack comprehensive knowledge of the laws of nature or the specific details that shape future events, we possess enough understanding to make predictions about what might happen. This foresight helps us navigate an uncertain future, allowing us to infer likely outcomes based on limited information. The ability to foresee, even imperfectly, provides a valuable tool for making decisions in the face of incomplete knowledge, highlighting the importance of intuition and informed guesses in shaping our actions. Quote 43. Foresight is the product of insight. This quote indicates that foresight, or the ability to anticipate the future, stems from insight, which involves a deep understanding of present circumstances and underlying dynamics. Foresight requires a broad comprehension of both the general principles governing human behavior and the specific context in which those behaviors occur. This understanding comes from studying the interactions between technology, social structures, and individual psychology. The better our insight into the world as it is, the more accurately we can predict how it might change. In business, this means that those with a comprehensive understanding of market trends, human behavior, and technological advancements are better equipped to foresee and respond to future developments. Quote 44. Society requires stability. Foresight itself presupposes stability, and stability is the product of routine. This quote highlights that stability is a foundational aspect of society, and routine is what creates this stability. Routine consists of predictable, consistent behaviors and systems that allow for the smooth functioning of social and economic activities. Without routine, there can be no stable environment in which foresight can operate effectively, because foresight relies on an understanding of established patterns to anticipate future outcomes. While routine ensures continuity and order, it must also be balanced with foresight to adapt to changing circumstances. Thus, stability, grounded in routine, provides the necessary environment for both maintaining current systems and planning for future challenges. Quote 45. The note of recurrence dominates the wisdom of the past, and still persists in many forms, even where explicitly the fallacy of its modern application is admitted. This quote reflects the idea that much of traditional wisdom assumes a stable, recurring social structure, where future conditions closely resemble past experiences. Historically, this assumption was valid because the pace of change was slow, and societal structures remained consistent over generations. However, in modern times, where change is rapid and continuous, this reliance on recurrence has become a fallacy. Yet, many of our political, economic, and educational systems are still influenced by this outdated perspective, leading to a mismatch between traditional doctrines and contemporary realities. The persistence of this recurrence-based mindset impedes our ability to effectively address the challenges of an ever-evolving world. Quote 46. The effort to comprehend the great fact which procures the order in the universe urged Greek thinkers to that culmination when Plato and Aristotle defined the complex of general ideas forming the imperishable origin of Western thought. This quote highlights the Greek philosophers' pursuit to understand the underlying order of the universe, which led to the foundational contributions of Plato and Aristotle. Their work established a framework of general ideas that have remained essential to Western intellectual tradition. The Greeks believed that the universe could be understood through reason, and this belief drove them to create a systematic philosophy that explored the nature of existence, knowledge, and morality. This intellectual achievement provided the basis for both scientific inquiry and philosophical reflection in the Western world, forming an enduring legacy that continues to influence contemporary thought. Quote 47. The note of Hellenism is delight, speculation, discursive literature. The note of Hellenistic Alexandria is concentration, thoroughness, investigation of the special types of order appertaining to special topics. This quote contrasts the nature of Greek, Hellenic, thought with that of the Hellenistic period centered in Alexandria. Hellenism was characterized by a spirit of wonder, speculation, and an exploration of broad philosophical ideas. In contrast, the Hellenistic approach, particularly in Alexandria, emphasized rigorous specialization, detailed investigation, and a systematic approach to knowledge. The Alexandrians laid the foundation for specialized sciences, focusing on methodical research rather than the broad, speculative dialogues typical of earlier Greek philosophy. This shift from general speculation to focused inquiry marked an important evolution in the development of scientific thought, as it introduced a more disciplined approach to understanding specific aspects of nature. Quote 48. The difference between the two, namely the Hellenic and the Hellenistic types of mentality, may be roughly described as that between speculation and scholarship. This quote explains that the primary distinction between Hellenic and Hellenistic thought lies in their different approaches to knowledge. Hellenic thought was speculative, seeking to understand the big picture, while Hellenistic thought was scholarly, emphasizing rigorous study and detailed methodologies. Hellenic thinkers like Plato and Aristotle were interested in broad philosophical questions and entertained multiple, sometimes contradictory ideas to explore different possibilities. In contrast, the Hellenistic scholars in Alexandria focused on systematizing knowledge, ensuring precision, and adhering to established methodologies. Both approaches are essential to progress. Speculation drives innovation and new ideas, while scholarship provides the discipline needed to refine and validate those ideas. Quote 49. The notion of law, that is to say, of some measure of regularity, or of persistence or of recurrence, is an essential element in the urge towards technology, methodology, scholarship, and speculation. This quote emphasizes that the concept of law, the idea that there is a certain regularity or predictability in nature, is fundamental to all forms of knowledge and progress. Without a belief in some underlying order, there would be no basis for developing technology, creating methodologies, conducting scholarly research, or engaging in philosophical speculation. The understanding of natural laws allows humans to predict outcomes, establish scientific principles, and form consistent explanations of the world. This sense of regularity underpins the entire pursuit of knowledge, enabling us to build technologies that work reliably, create scientific theories, and ultimately push the boundaries of what we know about the universe. Quote 50. Agriculture must be given a high place for its effectiveness in quickening progress. This quote emphasizes the importance of agriculture as a major catalyst for the development of human civilization. The practice of agriculture forced societies to engage with the unpredictability of nature, such as changing weather patterns, and prompted them to develop a deeper understanding of natural processes, such as the cycles of germination and seasonal growth. It also pushed communities from passive acceptance of their environment towards active problem-solving and innovation. Agriculture required not just the management of resources, but also a level of foresight and planning that encouraged more sophisticated thought. This marked a significant turning point, providing the conditions for intellectual growth and technological advancement, ultimately accelerating human progress. Quote 51. We inherit legends, weird, horrible, beautiful, expressing in curious, specialized ways the interweaving of law and capriciousness in the mystery of things. This quote reflects the complex interplay between regularity, law, and unpredictability, capriciousness, as experienced by human beings throughout history, which has been captured in myths and legends. These stories, which range from the terrifying to the beautiful, illustrate humanity's attempts to reconcile the predictable aspects of life with the chaotic and inexplicable. This tension is a recurring theme in human culture, manifesting in everything from ancient myths to philosophical dialogues like those of Hume and the biblical story of Job. The narrative exploration of good and evil and the order and disorder inherent in existence reveals a persistent effort to make sense of the mysterious nature of reality. It highlights the human need to understand the balance between the laws governing the world and the randomness that defies them. Quote 52. By the doctrine of law as immanent, it is meant that the order of nature expresses the characters of the real things which jointly compose the existences to be found in nature. This quote describes the doctrine of immanent law, which suggests that the natural order is an expression of the inherent properties of the things that make up the universe. According to this view, understanding the essence of these things allows us to understand their relationships and interactions. The doctrine implies that the laws of nature are not imposed externally, but emerge from the interconnectedness of all things. This perspective suggests that scientific inquiry is not merely about describing observations, but about uncovering the deeper connections that give rise to those observations. It emphasizes the interdependence of all elements in nature and proposes that the laws governing the universe are not fixed or external, but evolve along with the entities they govern. Quote 53. Pure speculation, undisciplined by the scholarship of detailed fact or the scholarship of exact logic, is on the whole more useless than pure scholarship, unrelieved by speculation. This quote asserts that both pure speculation without rigorous grounding in facts or logic and pure scholarship without imaginative exploration are limited in their usefulness. Speculation, which involves formulating theories and new ideas, must be disciplined by empirical evidence and precise reasoning to be meaningful. Conversely, scholarship that only focuses on existing knowledge and established methodologies lacks the creativity needed for groundbreaking discoveries. The balance between speculation and scholarship is crucial for intellectual progress. Speculation drives the pursuit of new ideas, while scholarship ensures those ideas are carefully evaluated, refined, and integrated into the broader body of knowledge. This interplay between imaginative thinking and disciplined inquiry is necessary for advancing human understanding. Quote 54. There is no greater hindrance to the progress of thought than an attitude of irritated party spirit. This quote suggests that intellectual progress is often hindered by divisive and hostile attitudes, where people cling rigidly to their own beliefs and view differing perspectives as threats rather than opportunities for growth. Plato's dialogues are used as an example of a time when a spirit of urbanity, or civility, enabled open and productive discourse. The vicious antagonism seen among later theologians and other scholars obscured important considerations, limiting the potential to understand or reconcile differing ideas. The quote emphasizes the importance of maintaining a balanced, respectful approach to intellectual debate, allowing conflicting doctrines to coexist and contribute to a richer, more nuanced understanding of complex topics. This kind of intellectual openness is essential for the advancement of knowledge, as it fosters constructive engagement rather than destructive confrontation. Quote 55. I hold that the definition of being is simply power. This quote from Plato defines being in terms of power, which he understood as the capacity to affect or be affected by others. This concept suggests that existence is inherently relational, meaning that everything that exists is involved in a dynamic network of interactions. It implies that the essence of being is not static, but involves a constant exchange of influence with other entities. Plato's assertion aligns with the idea of law as immanent, where the laws governing existence arise naturally from the interrelations of things rather than being imposed from outside. This interpretation challenges the view of a detached, static reality, emphasizing instead a universe that is characterized by constant activity and interconnectedness. Quote 56. The modern scholar, with his tinge of speculation, is an Egyptian employing his wisdom upon his Hellenic and Semitic heritage. This quote captures the nature of modern scholarship as a blend of various intellectual traditions, drawing from both Hellenic, Greek, and Semitic influences. The reference to the modern scholar as an Egyptian metaphorically indicates the continuity of ancient wisdom, Egypt being one of the oldest centers of learning, into the present, where it is applied to interpret and integrate the Greek tradition of rational inquiry with the monotheistic, often moral and spiritual, perspectives inherited from the Semitic cultures. This synthesis is what has shaped Western intellectual history. The quote underlines the importance of embracing and reconciling different cultural heritages to develop a comprehensive understanding of the world, reflecting the layered and interconnected evolution of human thought. Quote 57. The urge towards explanatory description provides the interplay between science and metaphysics. This quote highlights that the desire to go beyond mere description and seek explanations is what bridges the gap between science and metaphysics. Scientific inquiry often begins by formulating descriptions of observed phenomena, but it is the deeper urge to understand the underlying causes and mechanisms that leads to the development of explanatory theories. Metaphysics, which deals with fundamental questions about existence, causality, and the nature of reality, provides the conceptual foundation for such explanations. The interplay between these disciplines is essential for scientific progress, as it drives researchers to look beyond what is immediately observable, using speculative reasoning to propose and test theories that account for the hidden structures and laws governing the universe. This process of explanatory inquiry not only advances knowledge, but also enriches our understanding of the world in a more profound and meaningful way. Quote 58. An understanding of the nature of temporal things involves a comprehension of the immanence of the eternal being. This quote suggests that to truly understand the nature of things that exist in time, one must also understand how the eternal being, the ultimate unchanging source of existence, is present within them. This concept attempts to reconcile the idea of an ordered universe with both immanent and transcendent perspectives of divinity. It implies that the order of nature is not merely imposed from above by an external deity, but is instead an inherent part of existence, with the eternal being embedded within all temporal things. This approach allows for a view of the universe that is both deeply interconnected and infused with a divine presence, bridging the gap between purely imposed law and an inherent order. Quote 59. Newton's position was the more useful as a justification of the methodology required for the state of science, then and in the immediate future. This quote highlights the practicality of Newton's approach to cosmology, which effectively served the needs of science during his time and for the subsequent 2 centuries. Newton's ideas, rooted in a straightforward belief in the void, material atoms, and divine imposition of natural laws, provided a clear framework that enabled the rapid advancement of scientific inquiry. His cosmology offered a workable system for understanding and manipulating the natural world, giving rise to a period of significant scientific and technological progress. Although his metaphysical underpinnings were simple and somewhat naive, they proved to be highly pragmatic for the development of empirical science, which required a reliable methodology rather than a complex metaphysical theory. Quote 60. But one characteristic of each experiencing subject is a mysterious impulse to interpret its private world of enjoyed qualifications as indicating and symbolically defining a complex of communication between ultimate realities. This quote conveys that each individual has an inherent drive to perceive their personal experiences as representations of a larger, interconnected reality. It points to the mystery of how personal sensations and emotions seem to have significance beyond the individual, suggesting that our private worlds are not isolated, but rather part of a broader system of communication between all things. Despite the challenges posed by the limitations of modern epistemologies, which often portray individuals as fundamentally isolated, this impulse to find meaning and connection persists. It reflects the human tendency to interpret subjective experiences as symbols of deeper truths about the nature of existence and the relationships between all beings. Quote 61. Millions of humans have shaped their lives according to the compromise between these 2 doctrines due to the Platonism of Christianity. This quote discusses how countless people throughout history have lived their lives based on a blend of 2 different doctrines, imposed law and immanent law, largely due to the influence of Platonic thought on Christianity. Christianity, with its fusion of Greek philosophy and Semitic religious traditions, offered a vision of divine law that was both immanent in the natural world and imposed by a transcendent God. This compromise allowed people to find meaning and order in their lives by viewing the divine as both present in their daily existence and as an overarching authority governing the universe. This synthesis of ideas shaped the way many generations understood their relationship to the divine and the natural order, providing a framework for personal conduct and social organization. Quote 62. Science and philosophy belong to men alone. They are both concerned with the understanding of individual facts as illustrations of general principles. This quote points out that science and philosophy are uniquely human endeavors, focused on understanding specific occurrences as representations of broader concepts. Animals may recognize certain routines in their environments, but only humans have the capacity to abstract these observations into generalized principles. This human drive for understanding leads to scientific laws and philosophical reflections, seeking patterns that can explain the complexity of the world. Unlike animals, which might perceive and react to their surroundings, humans go a step further by striving to articulate the principles behind these phenomena. Science and philosophy are thus both tools used to lift humanity above the level of mere existence, enabling us to comprehend the deeper workings of the universe. Quote 63. The curiosity, which is the gadfly driving civilization from its ancient safeties, is this desire to state the principles in their abstraction. This quote emphasizes that the force driving human progress is a deep, sometimes disruptive curiosity that compels us to move beyond established comforts in search of understanding. This kind of curiosity does not merely seek familiarity or routine. It craves the articulation of abstract principles that underlie observable facts. It is this intellectual restlessness that propels societies forward, challenging the status quo and prompting the exploration of new ideas. Such curiosity has led to the formation of science and philosophy, which both aim to provide generalized, abstracted statements about reality. It is an inherently unsettling process because it forces individuals and civilizations to question what they know and accept new and often uncomfortable truths. Quote 64. The first clear example of a philosophic intuition passing into a scientific method. This quote highlights a pivotal moment in intellectual history when a philosophical idea became a systematic scientific approach. Aristotle's work serves as the prime example of this transition. He took the philosophical concept of classification and developed it into a method for organizing knowledge in the natural sciences. This transformation represents the movement from abstract reflection to a practical methodology that could be applied to investigate and understand the natural world. This shift is crucial for the development of science as a discipline because it demonstrates how abstract philosophical ideas can be translated into concrete procedures for inquiry, thereby laying the foundation for systematic and empirical research. Quote 65. We cannot produce that final adjustment of well-defined generalities which constitute a complete metaphysics. This quote asserts that humanity is incapable of constructing an ultimate, all-encompassing system of metaphysical understanding. Instead, our intellectual pursuits lead us to create numerous partial and specialized systems, each providing limited insight into the nature of reality. These systems often align within their own frameworks, but discrepancies between different systems reveal the boundaries of our understanding. This acknowledgement of limitation is crucial for philosophical inquiry, as it encourages ongoing exploration and the recognition that our current understanding is always incomplete. Rather than seeking a definitive truth, the process involves continually refining our ideas and theories in light of new perspectives and evidence. This iterative pursuit of understanding is what drives both science and philosophy forward, accepting imperfection as part of the journey toward knowledge. Quote 66. There is the one all-embracing fact, which is the advancing history of the one universe. This quote suggests that the entire universe is essentially a single, interconnected entity whose history is continuously evolving. It emphasizes that all events and processes in the universe are part of a unified whole, with everything that happens contributing to the ongoing narrative of existence. Plato's concept of the receptacle, which he describes as the foster mother of all becoming, embodies this idea of interconnectedness, where everything exists within a shared framework. Modern physics, with its concept of space-time, echoes this Platonic intuition by depicting the universe as a continuum where space and time are not separate entities, but intertwined dimensions. This unified vision of the cosmos reflects the deep interdependence of all things and highlights the importance of understanding our place within this vast, evolving system. Quote 67. The Platonic group of notions which have been considered have none of the merits of the Aristotelian set. This quote contrasts Plato's and Aristotle's contributions to scientific thought, emphasizing that Plato's ideas do not possess the empirical clarity or direct applicability of Aristotle's concepts. Plato's notions, such as the receptacle and the importance of mathematics, are abstract and philosophical rather than empirical or observational. They do not lend themselves easily to scientific testing or classification, which are the strengths of Aristotle's approach. While Aristotle focused on practical observation and the classification of natural phenomena, Plato's theories encouraged deeper speculation about the underlying nature of reality. Despite lacking immediate scientific utility, Plato's ideas provided an essential philosophical framework that inspired future explorations into the fundamental structure of the universe, underscoring the interplay between empirical science and speculative philosophy. Quote 68. It evokes interest in topics as yet remote from our crude understanding of the interplay of natural forces. This quote highlights the role of philosophy, particularly Plato's, in inspiring interest in concepts that are beyond the reach of current scientific understanding. Plato's exploration of mathematical relations and harmony, though seemingly mystical to his contemporaries and later critics, was a prophetic gesture towards the kind of abstract thinking required for future scientific developments. His insistence on the importance of mathematics laid the foundation for later advances in physics and the understanding of natural laws. This foresight demonstrates how speculative philosophy can guide the direction of scientific inquiry by highlighting areas of potential importance that are not yet fully understood. Philosophy thus serves as a crucial driver of intellectual curiosity, encouraging scientists to explore the unknown and expand the boundaries of human knowledge. Quote 69. The certainties of science are a delusion. They are hedged around with unexplored limitations. This quote challenges the notion that science provides absolute truths. It suggests that what we consider scientific certainties are often limited by unexamined assumptions and incomplete knowledge. Our scientific understanding is shaped by the prevailing metaphysical concepts of our time, which means that it is subject to change as new observations and ideas emerge. The history of science is filled with examples where established theories were eventually revised or replaced. Thus, scientific certainties are provisional and should be treated as part of an ongoing process of discovery rather than as definitive conclusions. This perspective calls for humility in scientific endeavors, recognizing that each new insight brings with it further questions and that the pursuit of knowledge is an endless journey rather than a final destination. Quote 70. The religious spirit, as an effective element in the affairs of men, has just obtained one of its most signal triumphs. This quote refers to the influence of the religious spirit in shaping significant events, particularly highlighting the successful, peaceful negotiation between Mahatma Gandhi and the Viceroy of India, Lord Irwin, in 1931. The peaceful standstill that resulted from these negotiations serves as a reminder that the power of religious conviction, guided by the ideals of moral authority and the divine persuasion, remains effective in steering the course of human affairs. This moment, which momentarily halted violence and tension between rulers and subjects, social groups, and religions, is seen as a triumph for those who believe in the potency of the religious motive. It demonstrates that the divine influence, which seeks harmony amidst the chaos of brute force, still plays a vital role in encouraging human beings to act with conscience and reason in times of crisis. Quote 71. The notion of the absolute despot has stood in the way. This quote criticizes the traditional concept of God as an omnipotent despot, which has hindered the development of a more nuanced and compassionate theological understanding. The image of God as a supreme authoritarian ruler, similar to a king wielding absolute power over his subjects, has been detrimental to the evolution of religious thought. This depiction is rooted in the ancient conception of kingship and carries moral implications that present God as a figure of control rather than one of persuasion or grace. Such an understanding of divine power has contributed to doctrines that emphasize rigid control and punitive measures, such as the idea of divine judgment and predestination. A more sophisticated theological approach, one that sees God as engaging with creation through persuasion and mutual immanence rather than through coercion, could allow for a richer and more humane vision of divine interaction with the world. Quote 72. The Platonic doctrine of the interweaving of harmony with mathematical relations has been triumphantly vindicated. This quote praises Plato's insight that the natural world is fundamentally linked to mathematical harmony, which has been validated by the progress of modern science. Plato believed that the understanding of the universe could be achieved by studying the mathematical relationships underlying its elements. Although his specific applications of mathematics to nature were often incorrect, the general principle that mathematical harmony is inherent in natural processes has proven to be correct. The development of modern physics, particularly through the precise use of mathematical formulas to describe natural phenomena, has confirmed Plato's belief in the deep connection between mathematics and the physical world. This vindication highlights the lasting impact of philosophical speculation on scientific discovery, demonstrating how philosophical intuitions can inspire generations of scientists to seek out and elucidate the underlying order of the universe. Quote 73. The temporal world is the stage of finite accomplishment. This quote suggests that the world we live in is where limited achievements and progress take place, emphasizing that our actions and experiences are bound by time and are inherently finite. Theology, in this context, aims to understand and articulate how the temporal experiences of life, full of both accomplishments and failures, connect to something eternal and enduring. It seeks to express how finite actions and moments can have lasting significance, transcending their immediate temporal limitations. This understanding implies that within the temporal world, there exists a deeper layer of value that endures beyond mere transient events, allowing us to find meaning in our lives that is connected to something greater than individual moments of success or failure. This approach underscores the importance of recognizing the potential for lasting value and purpose even within the impermanent framework of our temporal existence. Quote 74. The basis of experience is emotional. Stated more generally, the basic fact is the rise of an affective tone, originating from things whose relevance is given. This quote emphasizes that the foundation of human experience is not purely intellectual or cognitive, but is inherently emotional. The fundamental structure of experience involves an affective response to the world around us, rather than a mere dispassionate observation. The things we experience elicit emotions and feelings, which shape how we perceive and engage with them. This emotional involvement precedes and underlies any conscious discrimination or intellectual understanding. The notion that our experiences are deeply intertwined with emotions challenges the traditional emphasis placed by philosophers like Descartes and Hume on knowledge as something derived from clear and distinct intellectual observations. Instead, it suggests that our most basic interactions with the world are rooted in how we feel about the things we encounter, making emotional responses a key component of the process of experiencing. Quote 75. The creativity of the world is the throbbing emotion of the past hurling itself into a new transcendent fact. This quote describes creativity as the dynamic force that connects the past to the present, driving the continuous unfolding of reality. Creativity is depicted as an emotional momentum, something that propels the experiences of the past forward, transforming them into new moments of existence. This vision of creativity suggests that each occasion in the universe carries the weight of past experiences, yet reinterprets and redefines them in the present to create something novel. The throbbing emotion reflects how creativity is not a static force, but a vibrant and pulsating movement, ensuring that reality is not a mere repetition, but an evolving sequence of unique moments. This process of the past transforming into the present underlines the idea that all events and beings are interconnected, with creativity serving as the bridge between what has been and what is coming into being. Quote 76. The present moment is constituted by the influx of the other into that self-identity, which is the continued life of the immediate past within the immediacy of the present. This quote highlights how the present moment is shaped by both the continuation of the self from the past and the incorporation of external influences. The present is not an isolated or entirely new entity. Rather, it is deeply connected to the past, carrying forward the identity and experiences of what has come before. At the same time, the present is influenced by the other, new elements that are integrated into the ongoing flow of experience. This dynamic interplay between continuity and change gives rise to the richness of each moment, where the familiar is constantly being redefined by the new. This conception of time and experience underscores the idea that the present is always in a state of becoming, shaped by both the persistence of past identity and the integration of new influences that modify and enrich the self. Quote 77. Concernedness is of the essence of perception. This quote asserts that perception is fundamentally about being concerned or affected by what we perceive. It challenges the view that perception is merely the passive reception of sensory data. Instead, perception is described as an active, involved process where the subject has an emotional or intentional connection to the object being perceived. This idea resonates with the concept of concern, as described by the Quakers, which implies an affective engagement with the object of experience. The use of the term concernedness indicates that perception is not neutral or detached. It involves a relational quality where the perceiver is actively involved in the experience of the object. This perspective shifts the understanding of perception from one of passive observation to one of emotional and intentional interaction, emphasizing the subjective and relational aspects of how we engage with the world around us. Quote 78. The doctrine of the continuity of nature balances and limits the doctrine of the absolute individuality of each occasion of experience. This quote highlights that while each occasion of experience is unique and individual, there is also a fundamental continuity that connects different experiences. The continuity of nature ensures that individual experiences are not isolated, but are connected in a flow that maintains a sense of identity over time. This connection manifests through the subjective forms, which are carried from one experience to the next, creating a seamless transition. This continuity allows for personal identity and coherence within the flow of experiences, even as each moment retains its distinctiveness. The balance between individuality and continuity is essential in understanding how beings maintain their identity while continuously evolving through time. Quote 79. The initial situation includes a factor of activity, which is the reason for the origin of that occasion of experience. This factor of activity is what I have called creativity. This quote suggests that each moment of experience begins with an inherent creative force that drives its emergence. Creativity is described as the active element that propels the formation of new experiences from prior conditions. It is not merely a passive reception of external stimuli, but an active process of synthesizing these inputs into a novel moment of existence. Creativity thus underpins the dynamic nature of reality, ensuring that each new occasion of experience is not simply a repetition of the past, but an original synthesis that adds something new to the world. This concept positions creativity as a fundamental principle of existence, responsible for the ongoing evolution and transformation of the universe. Quote 80. Non-sensuous perception is one aspect of the continuity of nature. This quote emphasizes that non-sensuous perception, the awareness of elements of our experience that are not directly related to sensory input, is a crucial aspect of how continuity in nature is experienced. Non-sensuous perception allows us to maintain a connection with the immediate past, carrying emotions, intentions, and subjective experiences forward into the present. This continuity forms the basis of our personal identity and the coherence of our experiences over time. It shows that perception is not limited to the immediate tangible aspects of the world, but includes an ongoing, intrinsic connection with past experiences that shapes our current reality. This continuity provides a sense of flow and persistence that is integral to understanding the self and the broader natural world. Quote 81. The universe is dual because, in the fullest sense, it is both transient and eternal. This quote presents the concept that the universe inherently possesses dual qualities. It is simultaneously transient, always changing and evolving, and eternal, encompassing timeless aspects that remain consistent. This duality is reflected in every aspect of existence, where both the passing, impermanent nature of individual moments and the enduring, overarching principles coexist. The transient aspect relates to the physical changes and the constant flux of experiences, while the eternal aspect pertains to the underlying forms, ideals, or principles that persist beyond individual occurrences. This perspective emphasizes that the universe cannot be understood fully by focusing only on its fleeting elements or its static ones. Rather, it is the union of these opposing qualities that defines the true nature of existence. Quote 82. Immediate existence requires the insertion of the future in the crannies of the present. This quote emphasizes that the present moment cannot be fully understood without acknowledging its intrinsic connection to the future. Every present moment carries within it an anticipation of what is to come, shaping its meaning and significance. Human activities, such as making plans, forming expectations, and setting goals, all reflect the future's role in giving depth and direction to the present. Without this relationship to the future, the present would lack substance and purpose. Thus, the present moment is always in transition, constantly moving towards what comes next, and this dynamic relationship is essential for understanding the nature of immediate experience. Quote 83. Each moment of experience confesses itself to be a transition between two worlds, the immediate past and the immediate future. This quote highlights the transitional nature of every moment of experience, which stands between the past and the future. Each moment is not an isolated point in time, but is defined by its connection to what has just occurred and what is yet to come. The past influences the present by providing the basis upon which current experiences are built, while the future influences the present through anticipation and intention. This constant movement from past to future gives life its flow and continuity. The present moment is thus a bridge, shaped by its inheritance from the past and its projection into the future, making every experience both a product of what has been and a contributor to what will be. Quote 84. The present bears in its own essence the relationships which it will have to the future. This quote suggests that the present moment inherently contains the seeds of the future, defining how future events will unfold. The present is not just a fleeting instance, but carries within it the potentialities and conditions that will shape what comes next. This means that the future is, to some extent, already determined by the relationships and structures established in the present. The present moment, thus, has an active role in shaping the future, as it includes within its own nature the connections and necessities that guide the unfolding of subsequent events. This idea emphasizes the continuity and interdependence between the present and the future, where the present moment lays the foundation for all that follows. Quote 85. The causal independence of contemporary occasions is the ground for the freedom within the universe. This quote points out that the independence of events happening simultaneously is what allows for freedom in the universe. Each contemporary occasion, or moment of experience, is not causally determined by the others occurring at the same time, which means that there is a space for spontaneity and individual action. This freedom allows different parts of the universe to evolve without being strictly bound by what happens elsewhere at the same moment. This independence provides the elbow room necessary for creativity, diversity, and unpredictability, enabling a richer and more dynamic reality. It highlights the importance of autonomy within the unfolding of events, allowing for variability and new possibilities in the fabric of existence. Quote 86. The grouped occasions then acquire a unity. They become, for the experience of the percipient, one thing which is complex by reason of its divisibility into many occasions. This quote suggests that when individual experiences, or occasions, are grouped together, they form a unified entity that is perceived as a single complex whole. This unity arises because these occasions share certain characteristics and are functionally related, leading to a collective identity. For the percipient, this group of occasions is experienced as one entity despite its inherent complexity and divisibility. Each of these grouped occasions can be understood as a part of a larger framework, which maintains its unity through the relationships between its parts. This understanding highlights the process of how individual experiences are not isolated, but can merge into a greater, cohesive structure, thus creating a complex whole that transcends its individual components. Quote 87. A society has an essential character, whereby it is the society that it is, and it has also accidental qualities which vary as circumstances alter. This quote points out that a society, a collection of related experiences or entities, has certain core features that define its fundamental nature, making it what it is. These essential characteristics remain consistent over time, providing the basis for its identity. However, societies also have accidental qualities, which are aspects that can change depending on external circumstances. These variations do not alter the core identity of the society, but reflect its adaptability to different conditions. The distinction between essential and accidental qualities allows for an understanding of stability and change within a society. While the core remains intact, peripheral aspects can evolve in response to external influences, contributing to the society's dynamic nature. Quote 88. There is no necessary connection between life and personality. A personal society need not be living in the general sense of the term, and a living society need not be personal. This quote highlights the distinction between life and personality, suggesting that they are not inherently linked. A personal society, which is defined by its continuity and unity of purpose, does not necessarily have to be alive in the biological sense. Conversely, a living society, such as a tree or other forms of biological life, does not necessarily possess a personal identity or consciousness as defined by human standards. This distinction is important because it broadens the understanding of what constitutes life and personality, allowing for the possibility of entities that are alive without being personal, and vice versa. It underscores the complexity of defining life and consciousness, indicating that they do not always coexist in a straightforward manner. Quote 89. The essence of life is the teleological introduction of novelty, with some confirmation of objectives. This quote defines the core of life as the purposeful introduction of new elements or changes that are aligned with certain goals or objectives. Life is not just about maintaining existing conditions, but involves actively seeking new possibilities and adapting to changes in a way that maintains coherence and direction. This process of incorporating novelty while aligning it with a broader purpose is what gives life its dynamic quality. It suggests that living entities are characterized by their ability to innovate and adapt while maintaining a sense of continuity and stability. This teleological aspect, the orientation toward a goal, distinguishes living systems from non-living ones, as it implies an inherent drive towards growth, adaptation, and purposeful change. Quote 90. The objective content of an occasion of experience sorts itself out under two contrasted characters, appearance and reality. This quote suggests that every experience can be divided into two distinct aspects, appearance and reality. Appearance refers to how things seem to the perceiver, often shaped by individual perspective and the mental processes involved, while reality pertains to the more fundamental, unaltered aspects of existence that remain constant irrespective of individual perception. The distinction between appearance and reality is not applicable to the entirety of experience, but rather to its objective components. Higher phases of mental functioning, particularly those involving complex synthesis of physical and mental elements, are where this distinction becomes most evident. The dominance of appearance in conscious perception has often led to the misinterpretation of metaphysical truths, leading thinkers, especially in modern philosophy, to give undue emphasis to superficial characteristics rather than investigating deeper, underlying realities. This differentiation is central to understanding how perceptions are filtered and transformed through the mental processes that make up human experience. Quote 91. The present occasion in this personal life inherits with peculiar dominance the antecedent experiences in this succession. This quote highlights the idea that each moment of personal experience is profoundly influenced by the experiences that came before it. The present is not an isolated occurrence, but rather a continuation of a series of experiences, with the past playing a significant role in shaping the current moment. This continuity is particularly important in the context of personal identity, where the experiences of the past provide a foundation for the present self. The inherited elements from past experiences, such as emotions, perceptions, and memories, are integrated into the present occasion, making it richer and more complex. This process ensures that personal life is characterized by a continuous flow, where the past is constantly informing and transforming the present, thus providing a sense of enduring identity. Quote 92. Appearance is an incredibly simplified edition of reality. This quote suggests that what we perceive as appearance is a vastly simplified version of the complex reality that underlies it. Human perception, particularly through the mental processes involved, tends to filter and reduce the intricate details of the world into something more manageable and comprehensible. This simplification is necessary because the full complexity of reality is too overwhelming for the human mind to process in its entirety. As a result, appearance presents only the essential aspects that are relevant for immediate understanding or action, stripping away the deeper and more nuanced aspects of reality. This process of simplification allows us to navigate the world more effectively, even though it means that our understanding of reality is always partial and, to some extent, distorted. Quote 93. The conclusion is that the contemporary world is not perceived in virtue of its own proper activity, but in virtue of activities derived from the past which conditions it, and which also conditions the contemporary percipient. This quote explains that our perception of the present world is not based solely on the activities and characteristics of the present itself, but is heavily influenced by the past. The past shapes both the perceiver and the conditions of the world being perceived, meaning that what we see in the present is deeply conditioned by prior events and experiences. This continuity between past and present creates a situation in which our perception of the contemporary world is influenced by inherited qualities, relationships, and expectations established in earlier moments. This perspective emphasizes that perception is not purely a direct interaction with the present reality, but is always mediated by the traces and influences of what has come before, leading to a layered and conditioned understanding of the world as it appears to us now. Quote 94. Every method is a happy simplification, but only truths of a congenial type can be investigated by any one method, or stated in the terms dictated by the method. This quote suggests that all methods used in philosophy or science are simplifications that make complex ideas more approachable. However, these methods are only suitable for exploring specific types of truths, those that align well with the method's assumptions and limitations. This means that while a method may be effective within a particular scope, it cannot be universally applied to all questions or areas of inquiry. The limitations of a method arise from the simplifications it makes. What it leaves out is often as important as what it includes. The implication is that no single method can capture the entirety of reality or truth, and each approach has boundaries beyond which it becomes ineffective or misleading. Recognizing these limitations is crucial in philosophical and scientific exploration, as it helps in understanding both the potential and the constraints of any given method. Quote 95. Philosophy is a difficult subject, from the days of Plato to the present time haunted by subtle perplexities. This quote acknowledges the inherent complexity and challenges of philosophy, which has been marked by intricate and often elusive questions since its inception. The difficulties in philosophy arise from the need to delve beneath the surface of common language and assumptions to uncover deeper truths. Philosophical problems often stem from ambiguities and limitations within ordinary speech, requiring careful analysis to avoid being misled by apparent clarity. The complexity of philosophy is what makes it both challenging and rewarding, as it seeks to unravel the fundamental nature of reality, knowledge, and existence. The persistence of these subtle perplexities over centuries highlights the enduring nature of philosophical inquiry and the ongoing struggle to achieve a comprehensive understanding of profound issues. Quote 96. Speculative philosophy can be defined as the endeavor to frame a coherent, logical, necessary system of general ideas in terms of which every element of our experience can be interpreted. This quote defines speculative philosophy as the attempt to create a comprehensive and consistent system of ideas that can be used to interpret all aspects of human experience. Speculative philosophy aims to go beyond individual observations and facts to provide a unified framework that makes sense of the complexity of the world. It is about constructing a set of general principles that can explain how different elements of experience fit together, offering a broader perspective that ties disparate experiences into a cohesive whole. This endeavor is ambitious because it involves addressing all aspects of experience, including those that may seem contradictory or difficult to reconcile. The goal is to create a system that is not only logically sound, but also capable of encompassing the full range of human experiences in a meaningful way, providing insights that are applicable across different domains of life and knowledge. Quote 97. Theory dictates method, and any particular method is only applicable to theories of one correlate species. This quote emphasizes that the method used in philosophical inquiry is closely tied to the theory being explored. Each theory requires a particular method that aligns with its nature, meaning that a given approach cannot be universally applied to all theoretical contexts. The relationship between theory and method is crucial because the relevance of evidence depends on the theoretical framework within which it is analyzed. Without a guiding theory, it is difficult to determine which observations are meaningful, making progress slow and disorganized. Therefore, the choice of method is not arbitrary, but is determined by the specific theory being pursued, ensuring that the investigation is coherent and the evidence gathered is appropriately contextualized. Quote 98. The conventionalized abstractions prevalent in epistemological theory are very far from the concrete facts of experience. This quote highlights the disconnect between the abstract concepts often used in epistemology and the actual lived experiences they aim to describe. In philosophical discussions, terms and ideas can become so abstract that they no longer adequately capture the richness and complexity of real experiences. Concepts like feeling or relation might be reduced to simplistic definitions, losing the depth of meaning they hold in lived human contexts. This gap between abstract terminology and concrete experience can lead to misunderstandings or oversimplifications of what it means to know or perceive. Whitehead suggests that to truly understand the nature of experience, philosophy must be attentive to the full range of human emotions, interactions, and complexities that cannot be neatly captured by conventional abstractions. Quote 99. The connectedness of things is nothing else than the togetherness of things in occasions of experience. This quote conveys that the relationships between things are defined by the way they are experienced together in specific moments. The idea of connectedness is not an abstract external property, but arises from the direct experience of things being related within a particular context. It suggests that each occasion of experience is a unique instance where various elements are brought together, and it is this unity that forms the basis for understanding how things are interconnected. This perspective emphasizes that connectedness is experiential rather than purely theoretical. It is about the immediate reality of how things come together in lived moments, forming a coherent whole. Quote 100. Events become and perish. In their becoming, they are immediate and then vanish into the past. This quote describes the transient nature of events, which come into being, exist for a moment, and then pass into non-existence. The process of becoming refers to the moment when an event comes into existence, characterized by its immediacy and presence. Once this moment passes, the event perishes, transitioning from the realm of immediate existence to the past. However, this perishing does not mean that the event ceases to have any significance. Rather, it becomes part of the historical fabric that influences future moments. The idea underscores the dynamic flow of existence, where every moment is both a culmination of what came before and a foundation for what comes after. This ongoing cycle of becoming and perishing is fundamental to understanding the nature of temporal reality. Quote 101. Truth and beauty are the great regulative properties, in virtue of which appearance justifies itself to the immediate decision of the experienced subject. This quote highlights that truth and beauty serve as fundamental principles that help determine the value and relevance of what we perceive. Appearance, or how things seem to us, gains significance when it aligns with these two qualities. Truth ensures that what appears conforms to the underlying reality, while beauty brings a sense of harmony and aesthetic satisfaction. Both truth and beauty provide the grounds for emphasizing or diminishing certain aspects of an experience, guiding how we perceive and interpret the world. In this way, they regulate our experiences, influencing whether an element of perception should be highlighted and carried forward into future experiences or dismissed. This role of truth and beauty emphasizes their importance in shaping not only our immediate perceptions, but also the purposes we set for ourselves in our ongoing engagement with reality. Quote 102. Truth is the confirmation of appearance to reality. This quote defines truth as the alignment or correspondence between how things appear, appearance, and how they actually are, reality. Reality is independent and simply exists, while appearance can be true or false depending on how well it represents that reality. The degree and type of confirmation can vary, meaning that there are different levels and forms of truth. Sometimes an appearance may provide an accurate representation of reality, while at other times it may distort or only partially reflect it. This concept emphasizes that truth is not an all-or-nothing matter. Instead, it involves various shades and degrees of correspondence. By understanding truth in this way, we can appreciate that our perceptions and beliefs are often complex, involving a mixture of accuracy and distortion, depending on how closely they match the actual state of things. Quote 103. It is more important that a proposition be interesting than that it be true. This quote suggests that the value of a proposition lies in its capacity to engage and stimulate thought, rather than solely in its truthfulness. A proposition's interest lies in its ability to inspire curiosity, provoke debate, or generate insight. While truth is certainly valuable, the significance of a proposition often depends on the role it plays in expanding understanding or sparking new ideas. This does not mean that truth is irrelevant, but rather that the function of a proposition, whether it is true or false, can be to move people to think more deeply about a subject. Truthful propositions are likely to be more effective in producing successful actions or yielding enduring insights, but even a false or speculative idea can have a powerful impact by challenging existing beliefs or opening new avenues of inquiry. Quote 104. The blunt truth that we require is the conformal correspondence of clear and distinct appearance to reality. This quote stresses the importance of having a direct and unambiguous alignment between what appears to us, our perception, and what is actually real. Human beings desire a type of truth that goes beyond symbolic interpretations or indirect representations. Instead, we seek a straightforward, conformal match between our clear and distinct perceptions and the reality they aim to represent. This kind of truth is often linked to sense perception, where the goal is to have what we see, hear, or feel align accurately with the objective state of the world. Such conformity is essential not just for practical functioning in the world, but also for providing a stable foundation upon which deeper understandings and connections can be built. This pursuit of blunt truth is central to our desire for certainty and accuracy in our understanding of reality, as it allows us to engage with the world confidently and effectively. Quote 105. Beauty is the mutual adaptation of the several factors in an occasion of experience. This quote defines beauty as the harmonious integration of different elements within a specific experience. It emphasizes that beauty emerges from the successful adaptation of these various factors to one another, creating a unified and aesthetically pleasing whole. There are gradations of beauty. At its most basic level, beauty involves the absence of discord or conflict between elements, ensuring that the different prehensions, individual acts of perception, do not inhibit each other. At a higher level, beauty also requires the creation of new and stimulating contrasts between elements, which enhances the intensity and variety of the overall experience. This layered understanding of beauty reveals that it is not just about simple harmony or the avoidance of conflict, but also involves a deeper synthesis that raises the quality and complexity of the whole experience. Ultimately, the essence of beauty lies in the perfect balance between all elements, resulting in an experience characterized by harmony, strength, and richness. Quote 106. The subjective form of apprehension is partly dictated by the qualitative element in the objective content of that prehension. This quote suggests that the way we internally feel or experience something, the subjective form of apprehension, is influenced by the qualities of the thing being perceived. The qualitative aspect of what is being experienced, such as its color, shape, or texture, shapes the emotional and sensory response it evokes within the perceiver. For example, seeing a bright red flower may evoke a different feeling than seeing a muted blue one, due to the intrinsic qualities of the colors. This principle of confirmation implies that there is an initial alignment between the qualities present in the object and the subjective response generated by the perceiver. The alignment between objective qualities and subjective experiences forms the basis of how we connect emotionally to the world, underlining the deep interplay between the external characteristics of things and our internal emotional landscape. Quote 107. Perfection at a low level ranks below imperfection with higher aim. This quote highlights that striving for higher ideals, even if it results in imperfection, is more valuable than achieving a limited form of perfection. It suggests that progress and growth are driven by the pursuit of more ambitious goals, which inherently involves taking risks and facing discord or imperfection. A static, lower-level perfection can lead to complacency and stagnation, whereas embracing imperfection in the pursuit of a greater goal can lead to dynamic growth and development. This perspective implies that the value of an experience or creation lies not merely in its flawless execution, but in the courage to aspire toward something beyond the immediate or easily attainable. The willingness to embrace imperfection in the pursuit of higher ideals is seen as the foundation for true progress and the evolution of civilization. Quote 108. Adventure is essential, namely, the search for new perfections. This quote emphasizes that the spirit of adventure, actively seeking out new forms of perfection, is crucial to sustaining the vitality of a civilization. Without the pursuit of new challenges and ideals, societies risk becoming stagnant, repeating the same patterns without innovation or creativity. Adventure, in this context, is not just about physical exploration, but about intellectual and cultural exploration that pushes the boundaries of what is known and possible. The search for new perfections involves questioning established norms, experimenting with new ideas, and being open to the possibility of failure in the pursuit of growth. This adventurous spirit is essential to keeping a civilization dynamic and evolving, as it prevents the decay that comes from complacency and the mere repetition of past successes. The vitality of a society depends on its willingness to explore new possibilities, continually reimagining what perfection can mean. Quote 109. Beauty is the internal confirmation of the various items of experience with each other, for the production of maximum effectiveness. This quote defines beauty as the harmonious integration of different elements within an experience, arranged in such a way that they complement each other to produce the greatest possible impact. Beauty arises from the balance and interconnection of parts that work together effectively, creating a cohesive whole that maximizes the experience's value. This confirmation can be seen in both the natural world and human creations, as it involves not just the alignment of the parts within an experience, but also their alignment with a greater purpose. In this sense, beauty is not an isolated attribute, but a reflection of how well different elements of reality and appearance interact to create something meaningful and effective. Quote 110. Beauty is left as the one aim which by its very nature is self-justifying. This quote emphasizes that beauty is unique because it requires no justification beyond itself. Unlike truth, which may or may not be aligned with beauty, beauty is inherently valuable. It represents a positive and enriching quality that, by its own nature, enhances and justifies the experiences it touches. Even in a world filled with discord and conflicting aims, the pursuit of beauty remains a worthwhile endeavor because it fosters harmony and satisfaction. While other aims might need external validation or might even result in negative outcomes, beauty, by its essence, contributes to the enrichment of experience, making it a self-justifying and universally desirable goal. Quote 111. Art is purposeful adaptation of appearance to reality. This quote explains that art involves the deliberate shaping of how things appear to better reflect or interpret the underlying reality. The purpose of art is twofold: to convey truth and to create beauty. When art successfully aligns the appearance of things with their reality in a truthful and beautiful manner, it achieves its highest form. Even if it falls short of this ideal, art can still hold value if it succeeds in achieving either beauty or truth independently. The role of art is not merely to depict the world as it is, but to enhance its presentation, providing deeper insight and evoking emotions that elevate human understanding and experience. Art, therefore, serves as a bridge between appearance and reality, transforming ordinary experiences into something extraordinary by giving them new meaning and beauty. Quote 112. The merit of art in its service to civilization lies in its artificiality and its finiteness. This quote suggests that the value of art in advancing civilization comes from its ability to create a finite, complete experience out of the infinite complexities of life. Art takes the vast, often overwhelming aspects of reality and distills them into something tangible and bounded, something that can be fully appreciated and understood. This artificiality, or intentional shaping of reality, allows art to focus attention on specific aspects of the human experience, enhancing their value and meaning. By doing so, art provides a sense of closure and fulfillment that contrasts with the endless, open-ended nature of daily life. In this way, art contributes to civilization by offering moments of clarity and beauty that are consciously crafted and deeply human, helping individuals to connect with higher ideals and to see the world from new perspectives. Quote 113. Advance or decadence are the only choices offered to mankind. This quote emphasizes that progress and decline are the only two paths available to humanity. There is no possibility for a static state of perfection. The nature of reality is such that everything is constantly in motion, and attempting to maintain a static condition goes against the very essence of existence. A purely conservative approach that seeks to preserve a supposed perfect state without change is doomed to failure because it is inherently opposed to the dynamic processes that characterize real life. Societies must either adapt and evolve or face decline as stagnation inevitably leads to decadence. This principle is rooted in the belief that every moment involves both creation and destruction, and the only way forward is to embrace change and growth. Quote 114. A race preserves its vigor so long as it harbors a real contrast between what has been and what may be. This quote suggests that the vitality of a civilization or culture depends on its ability to envision a future that is different from the past. It is this contrast between past accomplishments and future possibilities that fuels the drive for growth and innovation. As long as a society is motivated by the desire to achieve new things, it maintains its creative energy and capacity for progress. Without this sense of contrast and the willingness to venture beyond the comfort of the past, a society becomes stagnant and begins to decay. Adventure, the pursuit of new experiences and goals, is what keeps a culture alive and thriving, ensuring that it continues to evolve and adapt, rather than becoming complacent and stagnant. Quote 115. The great harmony is the harmony of enduring individualities, connected in the unity of a background. This quote describes the essence of profound harmony as involving both the distinctness of individual entities and their integration within a larger context. The true beauty of an experience lies not just in the harmony of abstract qualities, but in the vivid presence of individual, enduring things that come together to create a greater whole. This kind of harmony evokes deep emotional responses because it brings together the uniqueness of each element with the unity of the entire composition. It implies that true harmony involves the coexistence of individuality and interdependence, where each part maintains its distinct significance while contributing to the larger picture. This interconnectedness of unique elements, held together in a meaningful unity, forms the basis of a powerful and resonant experience of harmony. Quote 116. A great civilization interfused with art presents the world to its members clothed with the appearance of immortality. This quote suggests that a civilization enriched by art has the ability to present aspects of life and culture in a way that feels timeless and enduring. Through art, the fleeting nature of individual moments or creations is transformed into something that seems permanent and universally significant. Art has the power to evoke a sense of immortality by capturing the essence of experience and giving it a form that transcends the limitations of time. Each element within a great work of art, whether a sculpture, painting, or piece of literature, gains an individuality that speaks to the deeper human desire for meaning that lasts beyond the immediate. In doing so, art provides a sense of continuity and permanence that elevates the collective experience of a civilization, suggesting that the values and ideals embodied in its creations are of lasting importance. Quote 117. Peace is the understanding of tragedy, and at the same time, its preservation. This quote emphasizes that peace involves not only acknowledging the inevitability of tragedy in life, but also maintaining the meaning and significance of that tragedy. It means accepting that pain, loss, and unfulfilled potential are inherent parts of existence, yet finding a deeper sense of purpose and harmony beyond these experiences. Peace does not eliminate or negate tragedy. Rather, it allows us to recognize its value and its role in pushing the world toward higher ideals. Tragedy reveals what could have been and inspires a vision of what still might be possible. The inner experience of peace, therefore, is about holding on to the lessons and transformative power of tragedy while using it as motivation to strive for a finer reality. This makes peace an active force that both embraces and transcends the pain of existence. Quote 118. Peace is the removal of inhibition, and not its introduction. This quote suggests that true peace is about freeing oneself from the constraints that inhibit one's natural energy and potential, rather than imposing new restrictions. Peace is not about suppressing emotions or desires, but about achieving a harmonious state where those emotions are fully understood and integrated in a way that supports overall well-being. It involves an expansion of consciousness and a broader perspective that transcends personal limitations and concerns, leading to a state of openness and engagement with the world. By removing the internal barriers that cause stress or turmoil, peace allows individuals to act with greater clarity, purpose, and compassion. This process involves letting go of self-centered preoccupations and finding a connection to a larger, more meaningful context, where the self merges with wider patterns of harmony. Quote 119. The deepest definition of youth is life as yet untouched by tragedy. This quote defines youth as a stage of life characterized by innocence and a lack of direct experience with deep tragedy. Youth is marked by an unburdened enthusiasm, a vivid engagement with the world, and an emotional immediacy that has not yet been tempered by the profound losses that come with maturity. The lack of tragic experience allows for a wholehearted absorption in personal pursuits, untainted by the deeper complexities and pain that life eventually brings. This unfiltered engagement makes youth a time of vividness, spontaneity, and optimism, where the potential for self-discovery and the pursuit of ideals remains unclouded by the awareness of life's harsher realities. However, this definition also implies that the full development of character, including the attainment of peace, requires moving beyond the innocence of youth and learning to navigate and understand the tragedies of existence. Quote 120. The vigor of civilized societies is preserved by the widespread sense that high aims are worthwhile. This quote emphasizes that the vitality and strength of a civilization depend on a collective belief in pursuing lofty goals that go beyond mere personal gratification. Societies remain vigorous and progressive as long as there is a shared conviction that it is meaningful to strive for ideals, whether in the realms of art, science, morality, or social justice. This sense of purpose inspires individuals to transcend their own immediate desires and contribute to something larger, fostering a culture of creativity, innovation, and altruism. The pursuit of high aims encourages people to take risks, explore new possibilities, and push the boundaries of what is known or possible, which ultimately sustains the growth and advancement of civilization. The presence of this belief is what prevents stagnation, ensuring that society continues to evolve and flourish. Adventures of Ideas is more than a historical analysis. It is a testament to the power of human thought. Whitehead encourages us to appreciate the dynamic tension between individual spontaneity and social codification, reminding us that the growth of civilization relies on the balance between freedom and structure. As we continue to navigate the complexities of modern life, Whitehead's reflections on the transformative power of ideas serve as an enduring reminder of our capacity for change and our potential to shape a more enlightened future.
Curious to dive into the mind of Alfred North Whitehead? With StudyLab Prosebook GPT, it's possible. Ask questions, explore themes, and discover the depths of Adventures of Ideas in an entirely new way. Start your conversation now by clicking on our logo, and if you're hungry for more educational content, subscribe to our channel to keep discovering, learning, and growing. Want more than just videos? Click on our logo now to join us on our platform for multiple choice tests, in-depth content, and tools to help you ace your studies. Get started now.